That's The Lessons of Haiti, and thanks to Edward J. Harris II, as well as Byron Hunter, for allowing us, and it goes back, I think, about 12 years now, allowing us at WBAI at that time to offer it, this documentary, as a thank you gift at that time. So just wanted to make sure we understood that, and that's where it came from them to me, then to you. So it's 10 a.m. here in New York City over WBAI 99.5 FM. Coming up next is Minefield with Dr. James McIntosh, and the co-host is Dr. Richardina McIntosh. Please stay tuned to WBAI.
It's all love. It's all love. No sweets, only ripe vegetables, fresh fruit and whole wheat. I'm from the old school, my household smell like soul food, bruh. Curry falafel, barbecue tofu, no fish though, no candy bars, no cigarettes.
Barigani, assalamu alaikum. What's up? Welcome to Minefield, a show where we explore explosive issues for the black mind. I'm Dr. James McIntosh. My co-host is Dr. Richardina McIntosh. And our guests today are Dr. Arthur Lewis and Brother Dennis Boatwright. I received a message from them that there was good news from the Sahel region of Africa. So let's get right to the interview to find out what it is. Welcome, brothers. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yes, thank you, Dr. McIntosh, for having me on the show again. My name is Dennis Boatwright, and I'm the director at the Centers for Pan-African Studies, a think tank based in Detroit, Michigan. And I am a Pan-Africanist. I'm an advocate for Africa, and we have been traveling around the world, particularly across the United States, spreading the news of the positive developments that's been happening in the Sahel region of Africa.
All right. Brother Dr. Lewis.
Okay, good evening. I would like to extend my appreciation for you having me, giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience. My name is Dr. Arthur Lewis. I'm a medical doctor for approximately 54 years. I'm an African American. I'm married to an African woman for 54 years. I reside in Harlem, and I consider myself a Pan-Africanist.
Well, both of you brothers thank me, and I'd like to thank you. It's a privilege to speak to both of you and to receive the kind of information you have to tell us. So, Brother Arthur, I think there was something you were saying you'd like to do.
Yes. What I would like to do is to briefly read some notes that I put together as it relates to the issue of Pan-Africanism. And I would like to talk about the continent of Africa, specifically 3 countries in it. So I made some notes, so I'm going to read from these notes so that I can get the point over without deviating. The issue of, I'm going to call my talk the issue of Pan-African government in African countries. What does one consider a good Pan-African government to rule a particular country? And I'm going to use 3 countries as an example. The countries will be Mali, the countries of Burkina Faso, and Niger. These are 3 countries that are located in what they call a Sahel region of Africa. That's the northern section of Africa, right below the Sahara Desert. These countries span, and which comprise the Sahara, running from the West Africa to the east of Africa. These are the countries titled Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Sudan, and Eritrea. Africa is the second largest continent after Asia. There are 54 countries that comprise Africa. Africa is about 12 million square miles, and you can place the United States into Africa 4 times. Africa provides to Europe and China oil, gas, wood, coal, fertilizer, food, minerals, and uranium, the essentials that these countries need in order to function. Africa has approximately 65% of all arable farmland in the world. Africa's present population is issued at 1.5 billion people. It has a positive birth rate. I want to now touch on those 3 countries to give an illustration of what one can call Pan-Africanism. The 3 countries I'm going to talk about are Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. These are the 3 countries that presently in that Sahel or central region of Africa, right below the Sahara Desert. The significance of the Pan-African aspect is that in Mali, there was a change of government. You call a coup in 2020. In Burkina Faso, there was a change of government. You call a coup militarily in 2022. And in Niger, there was a change of government that is considered a coup, 2023. What was a change of government? The military took the reins of government after the civilian government did not perform certain things for the population. These 3 changes of government were supported by overwhelming public support in each of the countries. So we're going to quickly just look at what could be considered a good Pan-African country. One, some of the things that we're going to mention, these 3 countries implemented it. 1, removal of all foreign military bases in the country, the removal of all foreign biolabs, the military structure itself to protect the country and the population. Each of these countries now are dealing with the international countries globally rather than just one country like France. Number 5, stop the looting of Africa's natural resources and the natural resources of these countries. Stop the looting by the United States and the West. Another criteria is run the country for the benefit of the population and people and not for the benefit of the IMF, World Monetary Fund. Formation of an African collective structure, infrastructure development for the society, and to bring to the country what has not been possible under foreign and colonial rule, bring peace, electricity to the country so it can develop.
Okay. So who are the leaders, the current leaders in those 3 countries you just named? Either of you.
Brother Boatwright?
Yes. The leader, the current head of state in Mali is Assimi Goïta. The leader and the most well-known leader in Burkina Faso is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. And the leader currently in Niger is Abdurrahmani Tichani.
Okay. And so now in the past, tactics have been used by the West, the United States and others, to dissuade leaders from following the path you just outlined. How can this current crop of leaders prevent the use of such tactics again? I mean, we can think of people like Gaddafi. We can think of people like Sankara. We can think of leaders like all the way back Lumumba. So what can these leaders prevent those types of tactics being used against them?
Yes, great question, Dr. McIntosh. Yes, they can prevent these things. There are security layers that they have been implemented because, just to put this in context, Dr. McIntosh, for 800 years, the economic relationship that Africa has with the West has been fundamentally the same, and that is exploitative. That means that the West were taking out the wealth of Africa and not giving them anything in return. So now we're at an inflection point that has changed this dynamic. To be specific about your question is that Africa, knowing what happened to Gaddafi, for example, they have put together 4 layers of security around. The first layer is they developed and beefed up their army. in each of the Sahel Alliance of Sahel state countries. They have increased their military personnel. Secondly, all three alliances of Sahel states member have decided to combine their militaries, and they publicly said that if anybody attack their country, it's like you're attacking all three countries. The third layer is that with some of their allies, military allies, Algeria, Mauritania has been on record saying that they're not going to allow Western nations to use their airspace to attack any other Alliance of Sahel state. The last layer that is there to prevent what happened to Gaddafi to happen to, for example, to Captain Ibrahim Traore, and that is China went on record, as well as Russia, among others, and said that they're not going to allow any other country to attack any country's sovereignty. And we know who they are referring to, anybody. So these are the four important layers that Gaddafi didn't have, that who you mentioned, Thomas Sankara didn't have, Amilcar Cabral didn't have. This current members of the Sahel state, they had that security, that strong security apparatus around them to protect them from these Western forces.
Yes, and that's a good answer, Brother Lewis.
Yeah. What I'd just like to add is the three Sahel countries that we are speaking about. For 10 years, almost 10 years after the West, the United States destroyed Gaddafi, in, let's take it 2011, 2012. That's when these jihadist groups begin to appear in this area that is attacking these three countries. So these countries know, and we know from observation and other things, that these jihadist elements that are attacking these three countries were put in place after Gaddafi was overthrown, and it has been maintained by the West. The West are those countries you know as the West, those European plus United States. So everybody knows exactly why it was put there. I'll use Burkina Faso as an example of how they were able to take advantage of this new reality Gaddafi didn't have. They immediately removed the French troops. They went to a number of African countries, setting up programs for training of the military, training of the National Guard, training of the police. So they went to other countries to help to train their soldiers. They immediately asked for and made the necessary communication to China that rushed in the necessary military equipment that they need to begin to fight the jihadists, like machine guns and like tanks. They also went in for Russia to supply jet planes. So they have jet fighters, they have helicopters. They went to Turkey to get the most advanced drones that can surveil the Sahel. So it was going to Russia, China, Turkey to come in and provide the necessary quality hardware military supply to fight the jihadists. They also related to these countries a training. So these countries are not only providing the military equipment, the modern military equipment that they need to fight it, they also are helping to train and structure the military protection. And you use Burkina Faso as an example. Now they have not a few hundred men under arms with the French to fight these jihadists. They now have a regular army, drones, jet fighters, helicopters. They have tanks. They also have a strong military they're building, and they will also put together a 50,000-man National Guard to protect it. So it was that ability to go to other countries to help them with the most modern weapons to provide security. And as a result of that, before these countries came to the assistance, these jihadists had control about 90% of the land area of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Now, in this 2-year period, these three countries have been able to take back most of the land. So they now are able to control 90% in this short period of time.
Okay. So now the most obvious question for me is I remember that Southwest Africa, which later became Namibia, had one group of oppressors. And when the Germans came, the people were kind of looking to the Germans as like people that, might be saving them. And the Germans got there and acted just as bad as the previous colonists. So my question is, do the countries who helped build the militaries you just described, do they pose any threat to act the same way the West did in the future? After all, don't they need copper, cobalt, and minerals and the kinds of things that these countries have also?
Yes, great question. That's an excellent question. Dr. McIntosh, when you look at international relations, every nation are there to promote their country's interests. And when you have that dynamic, there's a such thing as quid pro quo that comes into play. Every nation, they're not going to do it for altruistic motivation solely. Any country, whether it's United States, whether it's Russia, whether it's Australia, you're going to negotiate in favor of your country. You have to do relations with other countries, but be more specific. Let's put this in context, because this is one of the most important questions that needs to be answered. And that is, let's go through history, because when we go by, we look at a person's history to be able to make an evaluation of them today. So with this in mind, we take a look at, let's go back to the Berlin Conference. Did Russia or China get any colonies when all the other those Western Europeans were getting colonies? No, they didn't. They opted not to take any colonies. Did Russia? And I'm not an advocate of Russia. I'm pro-African, but these are just facts I want to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Russia didn't take any colonies at the Berlin Conference. They're the only one didn't take anything, by the way, Caucasian. Secondly, the question we must ask, did Russia participate in the transatlantic slave trade? No. So with these two big things, what is the problem? Yes, of course, Russia is going to want cobalt like any other country. United States want cobalt. They want uranium. They want lithium. That's understandable. But when we look at the record of these two countries, none of them, we talk about historically, we can't project what's in the future, but we know in the past what is the best indicator of what the future is going to look like. And Russia never had any colonies, and they never participated in the Atlantic slave trade. In fact, Russia was the one was supplying a lot of the resistant movements in Africa against Western domination and colonization. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we trustable, because like Dr. John Henry Clark, our biggest allies is the person that you see in the mirror. However, when we evaluate these other people who is helping for their own reason, which is understandable, but there's no evidence to show that whether it's China or Russia has a nefarious intentions in Africa. And I'm not saying they're coming as angels, but there's nothing there to show that they're going to just be replacing France or other Western countries.
Got it.
Yes.
Dr. Lewis, you have anything to say on that? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'd like just to add just a few points. In the Berlin Conference, when you look at the pictures and you read through the 3 volumes, the United States did send a representative to the Berlin and Brussels Conference of 1884, 1885, when the Europeans were cutting up Europe. And they did take colonies. They took Liberia as a colony, and they took part of Congo Free State. So the records show they sat there and they took a part. Okay. That's number one. The other thing is, when the coup occurred in Niger in 2023, and they removed the head of state, it became evident that the President Bazoum of Niger was selling the uranium. Niger has one of the largest, richest, high-quality uranium in the world. That president was selling the uranium, giving it away to French companies for 80 cents a kilo, when the international price for uranium was $200 a kilo. So you had a president who had a relationship that was giving France the uranium away. That's number one. Number two, that air base, that drone air base that United States put in that does surveillance of Northern Africa for the benefit of the United States and the West was allowed to be established in 2012 under the President Bassoum. So President Bassoum allowed the uranium to be taken away for nothing. He allowed the drone base there, and there was no military effort at all under his rule for 10 years to build a strong enough military to fight the jihadists. So that 90% of Niger was under jihadists under Bassoum with the French there. So that's the primary reason why Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali got rid of the French foreign troops, because they did not protect them from the jihadists that they put there. After 2 or 3 years, with the military assistance and the training and the collectivity of the three countries, each of those countries have recovered 90% of the area that was under jihadists. Also, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are now doing normal international trade with other countries. Before the coup, all of the minerals contracts were with the French, taking away the uranium and the gold and the lithium and the iron, paying pennies for it. Now Russia comes in. How do you pay Russia for the military aid? How do you pay Turkey for the drones? How do you pay China for the ambulances and for the military equipment and the buses? How do you pay North Korea for your help? How do you pay Iran for your help? Easy. Those natural resources like uranium, gold, and lithium that was being stolen from the country under the eyes of Bassoum, you use that as a barter trade. So each of the countries are coming in. They want to do trade with these countries because they know what is the future of global trade. The future of global trade is in Africa. Got most of the natural resources, and that they want to be part of that development to give to Africa. So how are these countries coming in? It's a barter. So instead of having presidents like Bassoum to give your natural resources away and you get nothing, now you can deal with each of these countries, and you now have your gold, your uranium, and your lithium that you use as barter, and that's how you pay for it. So you don't have to get into debt by the IMF or the World Bank. Each of these countries do not have to steal from Africa. Each of these countries need what these three countries offer, but they have the ability to pay for it. They have the ability to run their country without having to use these, but not Europe, not France. The uranium that they were stealing out of Niger provides the electricity for 38% of everything that runs Europe. That's the difference. So they want to do trade. You want to do trade. You don't want anybody coming and ripping, and that's the answer. When the French was there and the U.S. was there and the IMF, are they getting dams built? Are they getting hydroelectric power structure? Are they getting solar systems? These countries may get nuclear plants. So now these three countries are able to get what they need to bring electricity, to bring farming, to bring agricultural equipment. Everything that they bring in is done with barter trade. So they're not being ripped off at this particular point. That's the difference.
Okay. Now, the thing is if we, you said before that people do the same things that they've done in the past. That's one of the best ways to determine what people are getting ready to do. The countries, after they divided up the different countries in Africa, they had World War I. And in World War I, they were able to take some of those colonies back, take them to other people, give them to other people. They took away from Germany, Togo, Tanganyika, and Southwest Africa. Do you think these thieves are going to peacefully allow their victims to take their things back, or are we on the verge of World War III?
Dr. James McIntosh, we have thought about that, and we know that because of, as I mentioned, that Africa's relationship with the West for the last 800 years have been fundamentally the same, and that is exploiting. It's exploiting Africa of this natural resource. So that's a hard habit that's going to have to be stopped. And we know that they're going to be trying to come back. In fact, just since 2022, Ibrahim Traore, the head of state of Burkina Faso, he survived 16 coup attempts already that are being funded by the West. So, yes, they're going to be coming because it's too much at stake. You're talking about, for example, in Niger, did you know that Niger, when we talk about uranium, for example, that's not even getting to the wheat and cocoa and the lithium. Niger supplies Western Europe with 1/3 of their electricity, with such an enormous impact on Western Europe's economy. Of course, they're not going to want to leave quietly. They're going to keep trying to do things to come back. But there, as I mentioned, there are 4 layers of security that the Alliance of Sahel states has established to try to stop this from happening. But as we said, these people have been doing this for Africa really for thousands of years. And now the Alliance of Sahel states have been preparing for this. And just make an observation. One of I was reading a page, and one of the ministers said this, and I'm glad you brought this up, McIntosh. What's paramount now? Because people talking about elections, but what's paramount now, considering that they still have to deal with these Islamic jihads, they still have to deal with these different insurgencies and this destabilization that the Western nations are putting in this country. In spite of that, Burkina Faso and Niger has decided to beef up their security so that won't happen again. And they have said that they have, there is no reason for them to give up because they are tired of what's happening. Because what happened in 1960, there was a so-called African independence explosion. And we really know that was really flag independence because as Mali indicated, they said that when they got their independence in 1960, they only had it for 9 months. Ever since then, the West has assassinated or exiled the rightfully elected heads of states. It's not that the West. In fact, they say that 80% of all coups happened since 1960 in West. They happened in West Africa under French colonialism. So what we're saying is, they have decided that they're not going to allow this happen. So what they've said is what's important, Dr. McIntosh, is this. They said in order to stabilize our country, our nation, we have to first fortify our defense. After that, then we can get off into diplomacy. After that, we can start doing more development for the people. It goes in that order. So there can't be any elections or anything right now when you're dealing with a security problem.
Got it. This is WBAI 99.5 FM radio in New York, and we are streaming to WBAI.org. You're listening to Mindfield. We'll be right back after a musical interlude and a few announcements.
Critics prophesy
Saturday, September the 7th at 2 p.m., CEMOTAP will hold another Zoom war meeting about Netflix. If you think it's okay to make a cartoon called Good Times and show a black girl throw menstrual blood in a black boy's face, or show a black man styled as an ape having sex with a black woman, or have characters call each other the B word and the N word, don't come. But for the rest of you who are not certifiable, come. For information, for the Zoom meeting number and the passcode, call 347-907-0629. That's 347-907-0629. Okay, let's return to our show. Our guests are Dr. Arthur Lewis and Brother Dennis Boatwright.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Under Bassoum, the military, the president that they removed from Niger, that was giving the French the uranium for 80 cents a kilo instead of $200. What the present Niger government has done now, to give you an example, they have removed the contract. The French cannot get any more gold, any more uranium out of Niger. So they cut the French off from mining uranium. That's the first step. They're in the process of deciding how they're going to work a contract out with the Soviet Union, Russia. Russia needs uranium. Iran needs uranium. Turkey needs uranium. So they're in the process of restructuring that contract for uranium, not for uranium to be stolen. The contract to help to extract the uranium has to have a provision to train indigenous people so that they will be able to do it without them, which is coming under them. And they're making the decision on who is going to work to extract the uranium at the going price. So they stopped that. That's number one, using that uranium as an example. Niger also notified France that not only are you not going to get the uranium at this point, but we calculate out all of the years that you've been getting this uranium for 80 cents instead of $2, we want payment back. That's their decision. So it isn't a matter of one country coming in. They're coming in for trade, and you structure it so that you get what you want. It's remnants of Angola when it first began to give out contracts to drill for oil. What did they do? They went to 5 or 6 international companies and says, I'm going to give each of you a tract to drill for oil. We're setting the rules and regulation. Anybody who doesn't follow the rules and regulation, you out. And in the contract to drill for oil, you're going to train. So you take a person like Burkina Faso with Huawei, the Chinese company, because they understand the potential. They're working with Burkina Faso to put in the necessary infrastructure for the electronics. So these countries see a tremendous opportunity to deal with the richest area of the world, and the dealing that they do is not going to be colonialism. It's going to be business, and it's going to be done proper because they can balance them off. None of the countries are going to allow any of the other countries. As far as the Burkina Faso's security, Morocco, Algeria, the eastern part of Libya, Egypt have all made commitments for the protection of those 3 countries, because they know that they want to do business and they do not want that area to be destabilized like they destabilized the Western area. They have interaction and commitment from Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua to come to the aid. So besides building a strong military with jets and helicopters, and they have satellites, they have relationship with at least 10 countries. That's going to help. The United States cannot even bring together a victory in the Russia-Ukrainian war despite hundreds of billions of your dollars. Those colonial days are over.
Okay. Is there any way that, say, Africans in America could persuade U.S. officials to act differently in Africa? And what would that look like? What would we want in terms of change in United States policy towards Africa?
If I could address that and then vote right after me.
Sure, Doc.
Okay. My personal opinion, from my observation, because the United States government, like all governments, have a domestic and a foreign policy. If you consider the fact that the United States fought against the independence movement of all the African countries supporting the Europeans, that's number one. Number two, their main assistance to keep South Africa in power as long as they could to destabilize the West, it was done through Israel. So there's nothing in the history, there's nothing in the foreign policy that says, that indicates that United States is there to help. After World War II, France and Great Britain could not repay the United States in gold for their help. So United States said to Britain, their cousins in the Bretton Woods Conference, give me a piece of Africa to pay for my thing. What does he mean? I want a piece of Ghana, I want a piece of Nigeria and South Africa. And that's how United States businesses got into those three countries, stealing with their cousins. So even post World War II, the United States has been in those three countries minimally sharing the stolen wealth out of Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. So their present foreign policy does not permit them to look favorably on any Pan-African structure in Africa that is going to deny the theft of the natural resources from anybody. I don't see it. The government of the United States, I'm sorry.
No problem. I was saying, so basically
my answer is no, I don't see it. The foreign policy from the beginning, when they had Africans enslaved in the 13 colonies to this day, the foreign policy shows that the answer is no, they're not going to help, because to this day, they still work against it. There's nothing in the history for them to assist. Now, and I'll end here. There was a study done by two famous universities in the United States to determine whether or not the wishes of the population of the United States are being observed. And in that study, 20-year study, they said that 95% of all laws passed in the United States, local government, by the states and the federal government, every law passed benefited the large corporations 95% over all of the wishes of the American people. So the government, they demonstrated that the government, your Congress people, gets $5 billion of contribution a year from these corporations, and they give them $2 trillion of your tax money. This country, and I will end, is not a democracy because we don't vote directly for anything. It's a republic because we have representatives representing us. And when government, the Congress, and big business, the donors who run the country, when you merge together to run a country, it's called fascism. Because you have a country where the president of the United States can write executive orders that become law that makes it a dictation. That's what you have here. So I don't see, there's nothing that I could find where the United States is a friend of Africa.
Okay, Brother Boatwright.
Yes, great point, Dr. Arthur Lewis. And I just want to add on to that is in 2003, the African Union decided to add an additional region, and that is the sixth region, because they realized the importance of the diaspora. In fact, there's over 300 million people of African descent living outside the continent of Africa. But the African Union created a sixth region because they realized that we are important not only for their survival, but our survival as well. So in creating that, the issue with African Americans and how we can help in the diaspora, particularly here in the United States, is that the problem is the lack of knowledge. All of these wonderful things that Dr. Arthur Lewis brought up in terms of the development, in terms of taking control of your natural resource, in terms of Burkina Faso creating mobile health clinics to be able to reach people in the village. Most of the people don't know this. There's a lack of knowledge. And this has been done deliberately because the educational system in the United States has been dumbing down. For example, there are no geography classes anymore in the United States. So when we say we mentioned Burkina Faso. These people don't know that's a part of Africa. They don't know that's in the Caribbean. In fact, they don't even know if they think it sounds like it's in Asia. So there's the problem is lack of knowledge. So me and Dr. Lewis and other members of the Center for Pan-African Studies, we decided to become one of the voices of Africa. And we said that what we're going to do, we're going to amplify the accomplishments of Africa. That's our role. So what we can do is, in this regards, is we can educate our people. It's not that people are hostile towards alliances of Sahel state. It's that they do not have a educated opinion, an informed opinion on whether to like them or not like them. So this is important, Dr. James McIntosh, and I take my hat off to you again, because these are the issues that Dr. John Henry Clark will be talking about as a Pan-Africanist. So your platform is giving us an opportunity to amplify and to clarify the position of the Alliance of Sahel State. But the problem is the lack of knowledge. But once we are able to inform people of what's going on, these are not just typical coups that just happen. In fact, 84% of the population approve of these forceful transfers of power. Usually you only get 6%. But across the board, even foreign affairs, even the Brookings Institution put out a report. They said what's unique about these coup d'etats, as they call them, or these transfers of power, that 84% of the populations support it. Typically, they only usually after coup d'état, the approval rating of the people who took power is only 2 to 3%. That's 84%. And there's reasons why, as Dr. Arthur Lewis brought up of the phenomenal thing. But what we can do is, in a nutshell, our job is to break that cycle of not allowing positive stories, positive news to come out of Africa. And that's what we do. And that's why we thank you again for allowing us to come over here and come on your show to be a voice of Africa.
Well, brother, thank you for educating me as well as my audience. Let me just ask this of you. Do the leaders of the three countries you just named have a preference for whom they'd like to see in the White House? Or does it just not make any difference? Or do they prefer Trump, or do they prefer Harris? What from what you know, I'm not speaking about your opinions, but the opinions of these leaders in these other countries, do they care about the American election?
Well, Doc, Dr. Lewis, I'm going to tackle this, and I would love to hear your explanation. That, you know what, as I said, the United States foreign policy towards Africa for the last 100 years has fundamentally been the same, whether it's Nixon, whether it's Reagan, whether it's Obama, whether it's Clinton, whether it's both George Bush, whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump. So they don't have a preference. What they do prefer is a United States that lives up to its Constitution, where all people are created equally, all people are treated fairly. That's what African countries want. They don't have no preference one way or other. They just want to be treated with respect and dignity and treated fairly like other nations. They don't want to be a colony. They said it. We were told that why now? Why did y'all decide to make this move? They said we got tired. We got tired of people just coming in our country and just taking stuff, getting stuff for free. We got fed up and we said we have to stop that. So it's not really a preference, Dr. McIntosh. It is not really the color of the candidate. Africa want to be treated fairly, just as other nations are treated fairly. That's all they want. They don't have no preference or who's going to come here, because United States foreign policy posture towards Africa has not changed in the last 800 years. So that tells them it doesn't really matter who in there, but they do want, and they do hope, and they do pray that whoever come in the White House, they would break that cycle of wanting to extract Africa's resources from the continent. That's what they want. It doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. They just want to be treated fairly.
What I would say on this is, as some of the leaders of these three countries has stated, Do we have military bases in the United States? Was military bases offered us? United States divides the world into different military districts. The military district that they denote Africa is called AFRICOM. Presently, they have about 30, 40 U.S. military bases stationed in a number of African countries. Why are they stationed in African countries? That's the question you have to ask. But they don't reciprocate. That's number one. The second thing is, in some of the hearings they've had, the question was, why is it that Niger told U.S., take your troops out, and we're shutting down this drone base? If they felt that drone base was beneficial to Africans, maybe they wouldn't have shut it down. Or do they understand the drone base was there to surveil, to help the United States and NATO? The other question. And then I would ask the question of the audience, and I can supply the information later. I don't have the card in front of me. There was a study done. And in this study recently done, they stated that post-2011 in the United States foreign policy, from Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden, that United States attacked not only Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, attacked a number of countries under these 5 presidents, and they killed 5 million people. And they stated that for every 1 person you kill, 4 dies from the side effects. Now, I can't answer the question. I don't have any information about their preference, about whether or not Bush gets in or this gets in. But if I were reading this and I said, well, they got Clinton, Bush, and Obama, Trump, and they spent at least 10 trillion of U.S. dollars in the span of these 5 countries to kill 20 million people. You figure it out. Let them explain to the American people why you spent $10 trillion to kill 20 million people, according to your reports that can be found on the open internet. So I don't know who they care for, who they don't care. I do know, according to them and what they put out in the public, they're preparing to defend themselves physically, and they have the commitment of at least 15 other countries in Africa and out of Africa to prevent anyone to overturn the revolution. And what China and Russia has stated, that they will assist any country under attack by the West to prevent this.
Okay, well, listen, you've given us a lot of information today, and we're fast approaching end time. So I'm going to give each of you just a chance to say any last words that you would like to, including if you want to tell people how to get in contact with you or how to support Pan-Africanism.
Yes, this is Dennis Boatwright, and you can reach me, at my office is 313-397-8159. We also have a website with all of our articles on there and the work that we do. That is, you can go to www.thecenterforpanafricanstudies.org. But
slow again with both the number and the website.
Oh, sure. My office number for the Center for Pan-African Studies is 313-397-8159. That's 313-397-8159. And we have a website with all our information and some of the things that me and Dr. Lewis have been discussing here. And you can go to the Center for Pan-African Studies.org. That is the Center for Pan-African Studies.org. And yes, I would like to say something that's really more important that I alluded to. Dr. McIntosh, we are actually an inflection point in history. And an inflection point is a moment in time where rapid change occurs in relatively short period of time. That means it almost ambushes you. We're an inflection point in time, whereas it's favorable for people of African descent. And to give you an example of another inflection point is this: when Germany invaded France, and this very next day, Ho Chi Minh established his resistant movement because this was their time. And another favorable inflection point in regards, because inflection points are relative, in regards to people of African descent, happens when the French lost in Algeria. And that emboldened other African people to insert themselves. And we know in the succession from 1958 on, all the way to 1963, particularly in 1960, there's a rapid declarations of independence on behalf of people of African descent. I bring this up. Inflection points are cycles in history that are very infrequent and very unpredictable. So when they happen, you have to take advantage of that, because otherwise you will have to wait another 80 or 100 years to get this example. I bring this up because you notice I quote Dr. John Henry Clark a lot and Dr. Ben. And what Dr. Clark said, that people of African descent are poster childs of missed opportunity. In other words, when an inflection point comes, when we're supposed to assert ourselves, when we're supposed to take advantage of the reordering of the society, we don't. We fumble the ball. We don't do it. We get into arguments. Are they dictators? Who's going to replace them? All of these type of things we get off into. And Dr. Clark said that it's sort of like he used this allegory of a football player. You're running towards the end zone, and as soon as before you cross the end zone, you fumble the ball. So Dr. McIntosh and other people of African descent, this is our time. Africa is on deck. Africa is important again, and we haven't been important like this ever since we would go back to the 25th dynasty with Piaki. We have never kicked anybody out of Africa and told them don't leave. We never had a leader like Dr. Arikana that's coming and congratulate. We never had a leader to survive even as long as Ibrahim Traore. This is our time. So what I'm saying to us is not what the Western power is going to do. It's what we're going to do. Are we going to take advantage of this? There's 1.4 million people. And we're not trying to say we don't like nobody or attack people, but we're saying what Dr. Clark is Pan-Africanism or Paris. This is what this is about. And if we don't take advantage of this, we got a window that's going to last for 2 or 3 years. After that, it's gone. And our great-great-grandkids going to have to wait their turn because we have squandered it. So we have to take advantage of it now because Africa is in its best moment. I'm going to tell you this, McIntosh, we're in a moment in history that they're going to remember us like they remember the African independence movement. So we have to take advantage of it now. If we don't, we should start complaining.
All right, we're almost out of time now, Brother Lewis.
A quick comment is I want to thank you. Most important part of this talk is the fact that we were able to present information to our audience. And the most important part of it is that I have to let the audience know that it is you who have this avenue of access to information. And I have to extend my thanks to you for playing that role. That's the most important part of this talk that I've had.
We thank you for coming and sharing the information. I have to say that, you gave very interesting and very informative answers, and we appreciate you and appreciate the work that you're doing out there on the front lines. So if you value the kind of information you got here today, if you value the kind of information you get on WBAI every day, please show it by making a donation to WBAI. Go online, use your phone or your computer to get to the site, give to WBAI.org. That's give the number 2 WBAI.org and make a small donation or a large donation. Make it a one-time donation or a monthly donation, and you will ensure that there will be a WBAI tomorrow. All of life is twin, giving and receiving. Who would cast the spell of death? Separate the two. I'm talking to you. Stop procrastinating. Don't cast the spell of death on WBAI. Give to WBAI.org. That's both a request and a website. Go there. You can also go old school. Mail a letter to WBAI, 388 Atlantic Avenue, 3rd floor, Brooklyn, New York, 11217. That's WBAI, 388 Atlantic Avenue, 3rd floor, Brooklyn, New York, 11217. Send your checks and your money orders. This is the end of the Minefield today. We ought to be back next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And be careful where you step when you're in a minefield. You've just been listening to The Minefield Show on Radio WBAI. If you liked our guests, our conversation, our music, or you just like the station, please give to WBAI.org. That's both a request and a website. Give the number 2 wbai.org. Or go old school and mail to WBAI 388 Atlantic Avenue, 3rd floor, Brooklyn, New York, 11217. That's WBAI 388 Atlantic Avenue, 3rd floor, Brooklyn, New York, 11217.
A stick, a stone, it's the end of the road. It's the rest of a stump. It's a little alone. It's a sliver of glass. It is life. It's the sun. It is night. It is death. It's a trap. It's a gun.
The oak when it blooms, a fox in the brush, the nods in the wood, the song of the thrush, the word of the wind, a cliff, a fall, a scratch, a look. It is nothing at all.
It's the wind running free. It's the end of the slope. It's a beam. It's a void. It's a hunch. It's a heart.
Every day is Earth Day. I'm Ken Gale.
I'm Sally Gellert. And I'm Donna Stein. Every week we bring you environmental experts and activists, plus news, in-depth information, and solutions to environmental problems.
Join us at our new time, Wednesdays at 10 a.m., right here on WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org.
Wednesday mornings, 10 a.m. When your air or water are clean, thank an environmentalist. If not, become one. Enough said.
Put up a parking lot.
WBAI, 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 New York, New York, New York, New York, WBAI, 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 New York, New York, New York, New York.
We're the New Orleans Jazz Vipers at WBAI, New York City.
Join us on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Independent News Hour, the weekly radio show of the Independent, New York City's radical newspaper. Each week we speak with the activists, organizers, and social movement thought leaders who are fighting for a more just and equitable New York. That's the Independent News Hour, Tuesdays, 5 to 6 p.m., only here on WBAI 99.5 FM.
Total vaccination all across the nation. Keep it from catching monkeypox.
We are Refining Faith, and we listen to WBAI in New York City, 99.5 FM. Ooh.
WBAI accepts snowmobiles. If you have a snowmobile, we want it. We also want any extra cars, trucks, SUVs, RVs, boats, and more. Any reason is a good reason to give a vehicle to WBAI. Some do it to avoid the hassles of selling. Some like to skip the costs of repairing, while others just enjoy the good feelings of giving back to their community. But no matter your reason, donating a vehicle to WBAI is a great idea. And it's easy. Here's how it works. Simply call 866-WBAI-CAR. That's 866-922-4227. Or give online at WBAI.org/donate your car. Our vehicle donor support team will arrange your free pickup. When the driver arrives to tow away your great gift, you'll receive a donation receipt. Vehicle donations have the potential to drive hundreds and sometimes even thousands of dollars to WBAI. Call 866-WBAI-CAR or visit WBAI.org/donate your car.
Air and light, people could not thrive. That was the whole reason for getting rid of the tenements that go with it.
Maureen Coates, environmental lawyer with Planet A Strategies. Hi, I'm Michael G. Haskins, host of Living for the City on WBAI 99.5 FM, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Every week, myself and senior producer Jillian Jonas take an in-depth look at the city of New York as it is developing right before our very eyes. We bring on grassroots organizations fighting to have their voices heard and how the community in which they live will grow and prosper into the future. So tune in to Living for the City, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. over listener-sponsored WBAI 99.5 FM and WBAI.org on the web. WBAI New York